Oh, hey YouTube, what is really good? My name is Invivid Color, coach of the South Texas Sableyes, and this is going to be a late Season 3 draft recap for the PGBL. The first 2 weeks have already gone up. If you haven't watched them, please go do that, because if not, I'm about to spoil it. Hi, my name is Invivid Color, and I've lost the first 2 weeks of the PGBL, which I think is new for me, specifically in this league. I've definitely lost, I think, runner games before at the beginning of the league, maybe. But specifically not in the PGBL. I've definitely either scored a win in one of the first 2 weeks or won both of the first 2 weeks. Either way, we're about to talk about the team I drafted. We're gonna maybe talk about some of my downfalls while I'm going. This is just gonna be sort of like an introduction to the team at full, because so far you've only seen 2 teams of 6, so you haven't seen my entire draft. I'll talk about a transaction I made at the end. I don't have a slide for it because I'm lazy and I'm just using the slides from the live draft that happened on Twitter on the Killer Nachos channel, but you know, we'll address all of these things and more, and we'll also talk about the APA, which is another league I'm in, which is a Little Cup league. That battle goes up this upcoming Saturday. Spoiler alerts if you just didn't know that or haven't been keeping up with my life, which makes sense because I haven't updated anything. This is going to be us talking while I go over a draft. So, you know, sit down, buckle up, talk to me in the comment section. You know, let me know at the end of the video what your favorite Pokemon on my team is. That would mean a lot to me. Maybe you can suggest changes. You can leave a like on the video if you like it. You can subscribe if you're new here. We're just gonna jump right into this with my first pick of Season 3 of the PGL, that's not correct, PGBL, and that's gonna be Celesteela. Celesteela is a monster, I know that. When I picked it, I immediately thought, okay, so this is just like one of the best defensive threats in the format. As it turns out, this thing can be an incredibly insane offensive threat as well. It just has really good offensive presence. You can use Autonomize to double its speed, and even though it sheds, I think it sheds 100 pounds off of it roughly, because, or 100 kilograms maybe. It has a really high weight. I don't know its exact weight off the top of my head in pounds at least, but I'm pretty sure its weight in kilograms is 990. I'm just gonna look it up now because now I'm super questioning myself. The moral of the story is Autonomize sheds weight. Let me double check myself here. So it is, yeah, 999 kilograms, which is the equivalent of 2,204 pounds. So when you use it, you lose 100 kilograms, but Celesteela weighs so much that Heavy Slam on these Autonomize sets still does a lot. So you have these Autonomize sets. It makes a fantastic Z Crystal user, which I'm just going to go ahead and say this as I'm drafting. We had to declare Z captains at the end of the draft, so I went ahead and picked Celesteela as one of my Z captains because you can do things like Z Metal Sound, which I believe increases it's either its speed stat by 1 or its special attack stat by 1, but the Metal Sound reduces special defense harshly on the opponent, which is like actually a pretty dope set. It has, I'm pretty sure Celesteela gets Tailwinds. I could be wrong in that, but I'm pretty sure I think I might be wrong. I don't know. The moral of the story is, along with having like these sort of like really cool offensive sets that are Autonomize sets, or you can even, I've seen people run it Choice Scarfed. I don't think that's something I would do. You would have to sort of have it set up to where it's just because I don't think its speed stat is fast enough that it's guaranteed to outspeed things with a Scarf even, but it just has a lot going on for it because it can be very offensive, but also you can run these insanely bulky sets because Celesteela's bulk is bananas. I think it's all its stats. Okay, here we go. So its HP is 97, its defense is 103, and its special defense is 101. So it has an insane amount of natural bulk. Its typing is fantastic. And on top of all of that, it gets reliable, like semi-reliable recovery and Leech Seed. So you have a Pokemon that is an insane offensive threat and an insane defensive threat, which makes it very versatile. So I was really debating picking Jirachi up here because I had the 4th pick overall. And if you know anything about my presence in league battles, you know that I love myself a good Jirachi. I think Jirachi is bananas. It does a lot of things very well. I went ahead and picked Celesteela because I've never used it. And then for the second pick, I wanted something that would mesh very well with this. So I was contemplating sort of snapping up Garchomp. Garchomp was on my radar, and so is Zygarde. And then Zygarde got taken, I think, close to the end of the first round, because Zygarde, I think, pairs with this thing very well. It is immune to the electric type attacks this thing has trouble with. It resists fire. Celesteela can switch into the ice type attacks that Garchomp or Zygarde, really. They both are dragon ground type, so they both sort of have the same type synergy. At least Garchomp is a little bit more versatile, I would say, but Zygarde just has no switch in. So that was really what I wanted, and it got taken, and then it got back to me, and I was like, okay, so Garchomp is another tier 1 Pokemon. So if you look over here, am I pointing the right way? Over here. If you look over here on the tiers, you see that we get 1 tier 1, 1 tier 2, 2 tier 3s, 2 tier 4s, 1 tier 5. Those are all mandatory. We have to draft something from all of those. Then we get a mega pick, and then we have our 3 free slots. Now the 3 free slots come from a pool of, I think it was 400 points. I could be wrong. I'm not going to look it up, but the moral of the story is if I took another tier 1 pick, that would severely limit the amount of points I had left. And the way the draft was set up, just the way in general that Root sort of like does tiering, and we all sort of, me, Root, and Randy all kind of got in call and went over some of the tiering decisions and moved things around. There are some really value picks in sort of like tiers 2 and 3. So I wanted to make sure that I could optimize my picks to get better Pokemon. So the Pokemon I ended up going with was Mega Altaria. Now a way to get extra points is to draft a lower tier Mega. Mega Altaria is a tier 1 Mega, unfortunately, but it makes sense because it's kind of monstrous. It's sort of like Celesteela in that, it's versatile. It can be a very defensive Pokemon as well as an offensive Pokemon. So you can run like a Cotton Guard set, which is effectively a setup sweeper, because the idea is that you set up Cotton Guard and you run a set that's like Cotton Guard Roost and then either like Hill Bell attack or just double attack. And for the rest of the game, you just don't die. You can also run sort of a Dragon Dance sweeper, or you can just run this thing as a utility mon. So there was a lot of versatility here. The type pairing was interesting, and it also completed sort of like a Fairy Dragon Steel Core in 2 picks, which I thought was neat. So I went ahead and sniped this thing up. I have no clue how to use it, and if you've watched my first 2 weeks at all, you'll know that I'm still learning. I don't even think I brought this thing to week 2, but I definitely brought Celesteela both weeks, and I haven't been playing the best, I won't lie. But I think my first 2 picks make for a very solid sort of, it's sort of like almost this like really weird bulky offense core where each Pokemon can do like perform multiple roles. Like Celesteela, again, is like this wall that can hit very hard. Beast Boost lets it sweep if you autonomize and then get boosts. Altaria is this interesting Pokemon that can play sort of as a cleric with Heal Bell, or you can just come in and set up a Dragon Dance and try and sweep. So I thought that these 2 picks went very well with each other, and it's going to make my opponents have to think about, am I bringing defensive sets, utility sets, offensive sets? What am I doing with these mons? So that was my second pick of the draft. And then for my third pick, I was like, hey, we're just going for versatility. That's the theme of the draft. Let's just take Silvally because it's the most versatile Pokemon. It's not really the most versatile Pokemon in the game. That's Mew, I would assume. Or at least the most versatile Pokemon in this format. But Silvally is every type. You don't have to declare a type. You get to just run it week to week, whatever type you want. I love that. I love the move Parting Shot from playing in the Pokemon Little League, which is a Little Cup draft I did a while back. If you haven't been here, you can go check out some of the videos. We never actually finished the season, but the battles are dope if you just want to watch good battles. That goes for any of my battles. I'll link to Wi-Fi battle playlist in the description down below. I would love for you to watch some of my old videos if you're new here to get an idea of what I do. Other than that, though, Silvally is just, it's so diverse. It gets Defog, which also Mega Altaria does. So now I have 2 hazard removal. Like I have 2 forms of hazard control. It gets Parting Shot and U-Turn, so we get that momentum, and it can just be any type. I think that Silvally is going to be a really good, it's going to be really good to have. I've had at least 3 people come to me and ask if I want to trade it, and I just don't. I really wanted it. I wouldn't have picked it third if I didn't, because if you look, it's in tier 4, so I third picked a tier 4 Pokemon just because it was insanely versatile, and I really wanted to use it. I wanted to use it in the NPA. No, not the NPA. I don't know. It was one of the leagues I was in with that A-Drive had it. And I think I asked him if he was willing to trade, and he wasn't. So I picked it third. I'm not looking back. I promise you, I guess I can't fully promise, but unless someone makes like an insane offer, I just won't trade this thing this season, because no matter what, each week it has the potential to come, because its move pool is so diverse, its coverage is diverse. It actually gets a stab attack of every type in the game because of the RKS system and just being able to hold the memories. So there you go. Moving into our fourth pick, I sniped up Superior, and I'm incredibly excited about this pick. a lot of good grass types were going this round, and I think that having a really solid grass type on your team is very important in draft formats. I have always sort of like opted for these bulkier grass types, and the thing is, Superior is, once again, it can play a bulkier role. It gets access to like double screens, synthesis, leech seed, but its speed stat is, I think, 113, which makes it very fast. And the ability to just sweep late game with Contrary Leaf Storm is nuts. I see myself, in fact, I think both weeks so far, I've ran a set that's like max speed, a lot of HP investment, and then some investment into special or physical defense. Because if you set up 2 Leaf Storms with this thing, you're at +4 special attack. If you just land 2 Leaf Storms, you're at +4 special attack. You don't really need to invest a ton into special attack to hit very hard. And the fact that it's so fast just means it can clean late game. So we have another mon, once again, that has defog. So now I have 3 forms of hazard control. I didn't actually, at the time I drafted Superior, know it got hazard control. But once I picked it and then I was looking through its movesets, I was like, oh yeah, this thing's nuts. Access to Glare, 100% paralysis chance. Like, or 100% accurate paralysis. I'm butchering my words here, but on top of that, they can hit ground types, and this thing just threatens out ground types anyways. I think this Pokemon's nuts. I'm really excited to use it, and once again, I haven't used it the best. If you watched my week 1 battle, I brought the dual screen set, which I think is nuts because having access to dual screens alone and being a Pokemon that can set them up reliably is dope, because that's like the only reason that Alolan Ninetales gets drafted. Obviously, it does it in 1 turn, and it comes with weather. Ooh, if I could ever speak correctly, that'd be great. It obviously comes with weather as well as like 100% accurate blizzards, but Superior is a monster, and it, once again, we just have like a very diverse set of mons so far. So moving into my 5th pick, I decided to pick up Raikou. Raikou is, I believe, the least diverse Pokemon that I picked up so far, but that being said, you can play Raikou as sort of like a sub Calm Mind set, which is a set I'm very fond of myself. You can just play Calm Mind 3 attacks, Choice Scarf, Choice Specs. When your opponent doesn't have a ground type, specs up your Raikou and go to town. It'll be fun in games. It's got a very good speed stat. If you look, I've been trying to sort of like make up for picking 2 mons that are on the slower end early. So Celesteela in the base 60s, I think. Mega Altaria, I believe, has base 80 speed, I want to say. I have Smogum pulled up here so that I can look at the Pokemon as I'm going, but I'm pretty sure Mega Altaria is base 80. And so then after that, Sableyes at 95, Superior at 113, and Raikou at 115. So now we have like nice staggering in our speed tiers, which I think is really important. 115 is fast. It like obviously outpaces all the base 100s, and it lets you sort of play around with your EVs a little bit better. I ended up, just spoiler alert for the future of this draft, I didn't end up with anything that was like base. I like to end up with something that's like higher than base 120, so 120 and up. I didn't end up with anything of that. 115 is where my speed tops out, so I'm gonna have to sort of account for that. But at the same time, I have at least 2 mons where one of their main roles is to set up a move that increases their speed. So that's how I'm planning to patch this sort of like speed problem. I also have pretty good speed control in the form of Thunder Wave. So anyways, we're tangenting. Raikou is an incredible Pokemon. I had it in the NPA and I was really fond of it. I think it'll do a lot here. It also gives me a nice sort of like, not Volt turn, but well, I guess kind of, because Sableyes does get U-turn, but I have like this Volt shot core, which I think sounds kind of cool. Or I guess you can call it parting switch, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call the core. I have 2 Pokemon that can give me momentum, and I think momentum is really important in this format. So I always like to have at least like 1 good U-turner or Volt switcher or parting shot mon on my teams. Moving into my 6th pick, I picked up Nidoqueen. I've never used either of the Nidos in drafts. Like, I just haven't. And King was already taken at this point, and Queen was still around. Now, Queen is the bulkier of the 2, which I probably would have taken anyways. I like the fact that Nidoking hits so hard, but honestly, Nidoqueen hits at a comparable level in terms of power, but it takes hits better, which I think is impressive. And its move pool is super diverse. Like, the coverage this thing gets is gross, but it's also my first stealth rocker, and I think it's toxic spikes. So I have now I have hazard options, so I can set up rocks, I can set up toxic spikes. Toxic spikes are always an option from week to week if you feel like you don't need to paralyze or burn your enemy's team. Just wearing them down from turn to turn is really, really impressive, and I've been really impressed with that strategy in the last season of the PGBL with Toxapex of all Pokemon. Like, I think my Toxapex had, I want to say it was a double-digit number of indirect kills at the end of the season from just killing Pokemon with toxic spikes damage. So it's always something that the opponent has to be worried about if they don't have a grounded poison type. It also combines really well with the next Pokemon I picked, and it gives me an electric immunity, which is something I needed at this point because Celesteela's sort of like main two weaknesses are electric and fire. It can also get, you know, kind of like caught off guard by neutral Z moves, so like fighting type Z moves, ice type Z moves, like really hard hitting ones, but really you're worried about electric and fire type attacks. And I was about to say Mega Altaria. Mega Altaria covers the fire type of that spectrum, but Nidoqueen covers, giving me an electric immunity, and it also can switch into fire type attacks more often than not. So we have a Pokemon here that is bulky. It's versatile once again because you can play sort of like this offensive hazard set, or you can play just a defensive utility mon, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be really good from week to week. I was excited to get it because, like I said, I've never had one of the Nidos in draft, and they're so versatile, and people always talk about how good they are. So moving on from Nidoqueen, though, we picked up Starmie, and this is, during these two picks, I was sort of torn between picking Tentacruel and Mamoswine or Nidoqueen and Starmie. Now, I think that the Tentacruel Mamoswine pick, I think Tentacruel in general, the Tentacruel Mamoswine offers maybe a little bit less diversity for a little bit more power. That being said, Nidoqueen is power, and Starmie, they're both diverse mons. Like, they're both sort of like a core of Pokemon that give me a rapid spinner, which is something that I wanted because I hate defog when I'm also setting up hazards. So they both give me a rapid spinner, which I think is really important. And they both gave me a ground type, and they both gave me access to hazards. So the sort of like the thing here that swayed my decision was that I think that having the hazards on one mon, so now instead of having to run rocks on Mamoswine and then toxic spikes on Tentacruel, I can run rocks and toxic spikes on Nidoqueen if I want, or I can pick up a secondary rocker and just run toxic spikes on Nidoqueen. And I think that, and just in general, having Starmie, which is a much more diverse Pokemon than Tentacruel in terms of what it can do and how you can play it, just because Tentacruel's move pool is good, but it's more supportive. Starmie has nice supportive moves, but also just has a ton of offensive presence because its coverage is nuts. It's fast, again, with that base 115 speed, and it gets a special attack stat of 100. So you can run this thing like choice specs. You can run sort of like a leftover set. You can run Life Orb. Something that I'm really interested to try is sort of like a utility set with reflect type, because that means that your Starmie can't get pursuit trapped because you just reflect type on whatever is coming in to pursuit trap you. The pursuit's no longer super effective, and the idea is that you can just like whittle down things with Scald and recover. So you Scald, get burns, recover up, reflect type to become a type that is better than being like a water psychic type at the moment. I think that this pick is really important to my team just because, like I said, I love having rapid spinners, and again, we just have a really diverse set of mons, like mons that aren't sort of like lynched into one role, which I think is important. So moving on from Starmie, which is I think my 7th pick, right? Yeah. So moving on to my 8th pick, we pick up Entei, and this is the least diverse Pokemon on my team, like 100%. It's only ever going to be offensive, really. I mean, you can, I guess, try to get creative with the sets, but really the big draw to Entei here is I wanted a fire type to round out my water fire grass core. And if you look at my water fire grass core, I think it's very good. Entei, Starmie, Superior. I think it's a very good water fire grass core. Entei is the least diverse of those Pokemon, but gets extreme speed. So now I have priority. So choice band extreme speed is going to do a lot of damage. It gets access to Sacred Fire, which is a nuts move. Just, I think it's 100 base power with a 50% chance to burn, which is absolutely nuts. And if you just run calcs with Entei holding choice band, Sacred Fire does a ton of damage to things. Even resistant Pokemon, you have to fear switching into a Sacred Fire because getting burned is not great. So like I said, this is the least diverse pick, but just having access to extreme speed, Sacred Fire, and it was a really solid fire type that was still left on the board, I definitely wanted this. This is also probably like one of the best threats against Celesteela, just because its fire type attack is it's always going to be banded, right? So I would say that like Entei and Darmanitan, sort of like the really hard hitting physical fire type attackers, are the ones that are, I guess, the bigger fire threats to Celesteela. So taking that off the board looked really good for me. And also just this thing's a monster. It might not have the most diverse move pool. It's not going to fill multiple roles, but what it will do is sort of put a lot of pressure on my opponent's team to be prepared for sort of a choice band or a life orb set or even a choice scarf set, because you have to run adamant, I think, to have extreme speed. So you're always going to be sort of like lacking in the speed department against other base 100s. I think it's what it is, base speed. Yeah, base 100. So good Mon, maybe not the most diverse. Definitely, I think the least diverse Mon on my team, but I'm excited to use it. So moving on from that, we get Persian, Alolan Persian, the boy. I love Parting Shot. This thing also can soak up hits with Fur Coat. It takes hits that sometimes even hits that are super effective off of like maybe a weaker attacking stat. So it'll take like super effective physical hits fairly well. So you can take like, I guess like the weaker fighting type attacks. So you can take drain punches, you know what I mean? Once in a while, or you can take just most physical type attacks you're going to live, because Fur Coat just halves the damage. So it's kind of fat, which is nuts to think about because its stats would not lead you to believe that. Its bulk is not super impressive. But its base speed stat is again 115, gets access to Fake Out. So now we have a secondary Mon with like, I wouldn't say it's the best priority, but just having access to it is good because, you know, sort of like if I wanted to run the Toxic Spike set, I would definitely run Fake Out on this to just burn a turn and get extra chip. It also has Parting Shot, which is something I'm stoked about. So I have, I think, the two best Parting Shot Mons in the, like, in format. Pangoro is something that was on my radar. I really wanted Pangoro. In fact, Pangoro was what I was going to pick up here because I desperately needed a fighting type on this team. I just think it's important to have a fighting type just due to the coverage, and it's one of the best ways to sort of break through steel types, fighting types, and fire types. So Pangoro was the initial pick, but we settled on Persian just because of that speed stat. The ability for Code is nuts. If we ever want to run like a cheeky set, we can run sort of like a Technician Nasty Plot set. So it's a set I used to run with regular Persian where you just Hypnosis, Nasty Plot, Water Pulse, and then a Hidden Power typically. Or I guess we could do Dark Pulse, just whatever. It doesn't matter. This thing, it's diverse. I think it also gets U-turns. So we have a really momentum driven team here that has diverse sweepers and diverse threats, which is something I'm a big fan of. Just if you've watched my battles, I might not have played the best so far, but I promise we're getting there. I'm gonna make a big turnaround in this league, even though we're currently 0-2. It's not normal for you to talk about your score when you're doing a draft breakdown because you don't normally know it, but whatever, we're gonna move on. Persian is dope. I'm a big fan of it. I think its head is a little too round, but that's really my only complaint. Okay, sorry about that. I had a little bit of a coughing fit. I actually already started talking about the pick of Primate, but I guess I just been talking for 20 minutes straight without a drink of anything and my throat was dry, so I just started hacking. Anyways, so moving into my 10th pick, we scooped up Primate. I really had my sights set on Passimian this pick, but when I was talking to Mewtwo fan Nate, he was pointing out that Primate and Passimian do very similar things. They're both fighting types that are respectably fast. I think that Primate's base speed is like 95 and Passimian's is 80 or 70 or something like that. So they both make good Scarf Mons. They both get access to U-turn, which is why I was looking at Passimian. Passimian's attack is higher. I think its attack is 120 and Primate's is, I believe, 105. But Primate actually gets access to Defiant, which is really cool because I have a decent amount of hazard presence. And by that, I mean just being able to set up rocks and toxic spikes is really nice. And also just having a Pokemon that can sort of like switch into sticky webs or a defog and get a boost from those things is really, it's good. So I ended up going for Primate to preserve sort of another tier 4 pick because the way this shook out, I was going to have, my last two picks were going to be my tier 5, which I planned on taking last, but then I took Primate just because I wanted to make sure I could lock in a fighting type. I just think fighting types are pretty important in format. And then for the next pick, I had the absolute hardest time. There were some tier 4 mons that I thought were really cool. There's still some cool mons that are on the board. I went ahead and picked Fortress. I had Fortress in season 1 of the PGBL and it overperformed and it was in tier 4. And I thought that that was nuts because I think Fortress is very diverse. It gets access to all of the hazards. So spikes, rocks, toxic spikes, and it can volt switch, and it has a reasonably hard hitting gyro ball. I just thought this thing was going to be nuts. I actually ended up transacting it off just because it gives me another weakness to fire. And I don't think that's great because I have the Celesteela already. I have the Superior, and I didn't want to sort of like compound an unnecessary fire weakness, especially when one of my premier sweepers or premier Pokemon on my team is Celesteela. I don't want to incentivize my opponent's teams to bring unnecessary fire types, basically, or unnecessary fire coverage. I mean, obviously Hidden Power Fire, Celesteela can normally shrug off. Fortress can't. It is a very good Pokemon. I wish I would have made a slide for Kecleon, which is what I transacted it for. I don't know if I mentioned that yet or not. But I ended up transacting it for Kecleon because Kecleon also gets Stealth Rocks. It has a reasonably high special defense stat, so it can take special hits pretty well, which is good. It's also pretty diverse. It gets Protean and has a ton of priority options. I think you get sort of Shadow Sneak and Sucker Punch, I believe, and maybe Fake Out, I want to say. Also access to Drain Punch. Kecleon is just a really interesting mon that can put in a surprising amount of work, and just being able to take all of the Stealth Rocks pressure off of Nidoqueen. I'm blanking at this point. Being able to take all of the Stealth Rock pressure off Nidoqueen and have a second Stealth Rocker, I think is really important because now they can't just bring, you know, their fastest hard hitting ice or water type or psychic type or whatever and just say like, well, this counters your Stealth Rock user. So that's the squad. I wish I had a slide that was like an overview of everything, but you can just see it over here. So we have Celesteela, Superior, Nidoqueen, Entei, Sableyes, Alolan Persian, Primate, Mega Altaria, Raikou, Starmie, and not Fortress, but Kecleon. I wish I'd made a slide for that, but I'm really lazy. So let me know what you think of my team. Let me know what your favorite member of my team is. I'm going to say right now, my favorite member is probably going to end up being Sableyes. It's just a super diverse mon. Great stats all around, all base 95s. It's, you know, that's comparable to the all base 100s, just kinda. And other than that, I love Parting Shot. So just having access to a mon that can run Parting Shot every week and just be okay with it, that and Alolan Persian, is gonna give me a lot of momentum and a lot of chance to set up with my mons that are maybe a little bit slower and need some help setting up, which is what Celesteela and Mega Altaria are. So this is the team. I think it's really good. I know I haven't played that well. If you haven't watched my matches, I don't know why you're watching this because I've been talking about losing this entire time, but you should go watch my games. Let me know where I could play better. Talk to me in the comment section down below. I'll be replying to comments for at least 2 days. You can even tell me that this is an awful team and I'll probably heart your comments still. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed listening to me ramble for a little bit. This is the first video I made like this in a long time and it feels really good. I need to make an update video to just talk about what's been going on this summer and why I haven't been uploading. I'll get around to it. The APA draft recap should be up tomorrow, I would guess. If this goes up today, the APA draft recap will go up tomorrow, or I might just do it right after this and they'll go up the same night. I don't know. I have the graphics for it already. So shout outs to whoever did the, I don't remember. They DM'd me the graphics on Discord, but I don't remember who did them. Thank you though. APA graphics people, you're the best. Anyways, this is going to be it for me. Thank you so much for being here. It means the absolute most. Like I said, leave a like if you enjoyed listening to me. Subscribe if you're new. Talk to me in the comment section down below. You can go follow me on my socials, mainly Twitter and Instagram. If you want to interact with me, they're all in _vivid_color. I'll put the information somewhere. It's going to be in the description down below. But yeah, I think I'm kind of done here and I got to leave. But I love you. Bye.